I'm Paula from Chic Emporium, and today we've got a really fun project, a small project. I normally do furniture, but paint isn't just for furniture. So I've got a box and a mirror, and we're going to bling it up with some of my clay, dry air clay embellishments that I showed a picture of earlier on in the week. So I've made a few ready-made, and I'm going to show you how to do it because it isn't quite as straightforward. If you do it wrong, you end up getting lots of little bits sticking out the side, which become a problem afterwards. So I'm going to show you very quickly how we do this effectively. So you break off little bits of clay, not big chunks, and you press it down. And as you're around the edges, you roll it in so that you don't get those little bits stuck out the side. So this is fab clay because really we can just blast it with a hairdryer quite quickly and then sort of peel it out while it's still half soft. And if it's excuse me, if it's tearing anywhere, when you pull it out, while it's still a little bit wet, you could just seal it back together again. So I've just hair dried it literally for about a minute or so, and then I'm going to use the edge and peel it up. So it's still quite soft, but as you can see it's come out perfectly, and it still gives me room to blend it, move it a little bit. And that bit there's a little bit, but that's okay, that's fine. And painting it's going to hide a multitude of sins. So we've been using a bit of paper folded over to give us a perfect 45-degree angle to cut with a craft knife while it's still soft enough to create our corners. So we'll carry on until we've finished all of the pieces that we need. Okay. Right, so we've finished all of the pieces, and I think definitely the top tip is to do your project all in one day. Don't let these bits dry out the night before. They're much easier to work with while they've still got a little bit of palatable. We stuck it on with normal wood glue, which will gradually harden and get harder as it goes, but that seems to have worked quite well. There are still gaps where it isn't quite looking flush, but I think the paint's going to cover it. So we're going to have an experiment of using two colours. We've got flamenco and panther. On one project we're going to put panther underneath, and on the other project we're going to put flamenco on the underneath, and then reverse it, and then do some wet distressing and see what we come up with. We might use some gold as well because I think they look really nice together. So once we've got some paint on, 2 layers of paint, we'll come back and see what it looks like then. Alright, thank you. Right, so as you can see, I've given the box a really solid coat, 2 coats of the flamenco, and it's important that the colour is solid because once I start wiping it down, if it's only got a weak colour underneath it, it will go straight back down to the wood and won't show the colour. So now I'm going over with 1 coat, just one, of the panther, and I'm using a stipple brush to get right into the nooks and crannies and make it look like it's part of the box. So when it's finished, and when we've done the same to the mirror, we'll come back and I'll show you the wet wipe distressing. Right, so I've done 1 solid coat of panther over the top of 2 coats of the red. As you can see on the mirror, we've done the reverse, and we've already started wet wiping to distress it. So I'm going to show you what happens. Literally using very cheap wipes, there's nothing special, and we just gently rub away, and it will suddenly, there we go, start to show. But you've got a lot more control with this than you would if you were sanding it, because often when you sand you suddenly go, ooh, gone further than I thought. So the red's starting to come through. Now if I do it on a flat surface, you'll see. Looks like it's never coming through. This is why we only do 1 coat on the top. Obviously if you had cream, a lighter colour, you might have to do a bit more, but it makes it easier to rub through if you've only got one coat. There we go, it's starting to come through. But it's not all happening in a rush like it does when you sand, so you can control how much you want. So I'm going to carry on like this all over the box, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished, and then we're going to move on to going with some gold, I think, to add it to it. So I'll come back in a bit. Right, I've distressed as much as I'm going to, so what I'm going to do now is mix up some Frenchine. As you can see, just before I do that, you get through a lot of wet wipes, because it's literally soaking up the paint, so you can't do this job with one, and it does take quite a while, but it also smooths it all down absolutely beautifully. It's brilliant for people that can't cope with dust and mess, and if you're doing it indoors you don't have any mess, any dust, anything, so that's a bonus. So what I'm going to do to mix this up, I'm going to do not just gold, I'm going to put a bit of gold in, and I'm also going to put a bit of copper in, because I want to take the brassiness out of the gold colour. And then I'm just going to squirt some finishing coat in to make it a liquid. Okay, and I'm going to use, I've chosen quite a stiff brush because I'm going to be doing some flicking. But before I do that, there we are, mixed it up. Look what a gorgeous colour, goes perfectly next to the red. So I am going to be doing some flicking in a minute, but before I do that I'm going to use my finger just to get a little bit wet on it, not too much, and then I'm going to rub it over the raised areas. You can't get this with a brush, so you have to use your finger, but look at that, just flings it up straight away, it's no effort. Right, so that's what I'm going to do first, is carry on going around the whole box and the mirror using this technique with my finger, and then I'll come back and we'll do some flicking and you can see how that works. Right, so I've used my finger, which is now very gold, to smudge and rub in the Frenchine all over the box in different places. I think it looks lovely. It's a really good technique, and you just couldn't get that effect with a brush. So I've blinged it everywhere. I've made sure that I've done the hardware and the hardware on the back, and now we're going to try a little bit of flicking. So I'm going to use the same mixture of the gold. I've got, as I say, a very dry, cheap stencil brush. I'm going to put very little on the brush because I don't want it to go crazy. And I'm just going to choose little areas. Can you see that? Look at that. Sparkle! Just gives the most lovely effect. So I'm going to carry on doing bits of this on it, and I might go back in and do some more stippling with the red as well, adding colours and layers into it, but I really want to give it an old antique-y feeling with lots of drama. See you in a minute. Right, so we've finished the flicking. If you look closely, I've put some gold and some red flicks on this. I think it's really brought some spark to it. I've just handwritten and painted Je t'aime, so I'm going to call this my Je t'aime box. And I've lined the inside so that it matches and looks a bit special. And then on the mirror, we've done just some gold splatters because we felt that was all that needed, because obviously it's got a lot more colour than the box has. So the last thing to do is to wax it up and buff it up, and that's what's going to really bring out the shine on it and make it look really special. So we'll come back when it's all waxed and finished and just show you the final look. Alright, thank you.